What's going on, everybody? It's Joel here, and today we're going to be taking a look at my latest cold plunge setup, the ModTub 2.0. I've been using this over the course of maybe the last month and a half, and I have plunged pretty much every single day, with the exception of 2 days that I can remember. Before that, it had been maybe about a year since I last did a plunge, and not because I didn't want to do any more plunges. It was mainly because I ran into some plumbing issues with the setup that I have in my backyard. So when getting the ModTub 2.0 in, I knew that I wanted it in a more protected, enclosed environment, and I wanted to put it in a place where I would have easy access to it and really have no reason for me not to do it. So I put it in my garage, and I gotta be honest with you, when shopping for a ModTub, you really gotta think about the space that it's gonna take up. I'm not gonna go over all the dimensions exactly, because you can just go on the website and read all that stuff, but I can tell you that it does take up a fair amount of floor space. Like, the whole setup is probably longer and bigger than an assault runner, and an assault runner is probably the biggest piece of equipment that you can have in a garage setting. So that might be one of the main factors against getting a ModTub, but I think, all things considered, this is probably one of the best setups that you can get for the money for purpose-driven cold plunging. So the ModTub 2.0 is still kind of like the roto-molded cooler design. That hasn't changed too much. It's like the same plastic materials, but the design now doesn't just look like a cooler. It's a little bit nicer, a little bit more sleek, and a little bit more streamlined. I like the design of this far more than I liked just the normal cooler look. I mean, that just comes down to personal preference, but to each their own. For me, I think this setup looks a lot nicer. So when getting set up to go into the cold plunge, you have these 3 rubber latches that pull off, and then from there you open up the tub. You have the nice ModTub logo embossed into the back part of the lid. Another thing that I really like about this is that the lid is attached. You don't have to figure out what to do with the lid when you take it off or pull it up. And then, I mean, you can actually take it off. There's actually pins back here that you can remove it with if you wanted to. You also have an inner gasket here for insulation, and that I found works pretty well, because there was one day that I forgot to turn my cooler back on because I was filming a review here, and the cooler makes a little bit of noise, or the chiller makes a little bit of noise. So I turned it off, forgot to turn it on, day went by, and the water in here still held pretty good. I always have my chiller set to 49, and the next time that I turned that chiller on, it was still at 56 degrees, which didn't take very much time to get back down to 49. So this thing, as you could probably already tell, is pretty massive. If I were to get into it right now, which I will in a bit, I mean, I could pretty easily slip into this. The height is, I think I measured it somewhere around 29, but it's, you know, it's a good amount lower than my hip, so I could pretty easily get into it. But I also do have the step, which adds about 8 inches of height, which I would definitely recommend for somebody that was shorter, or you had mobility issues. That will definitely help you get in and out of the ModTub, and it's available in the package, but I think the cost of the step itself is like $150. It's not necessary, but it is nice to have. Another nice thing about the step is that it does have a drawer in it, so that you can put all your spa care stuff. That I would also recommend that you get, because it all comes in a package, comes with filters, and the Sirona spa care stuff it's not cheap. And for the filters and all the spa care essentials, it's only $150. So it's not that much more to add on. So looking at the tub itself, once again, it is a very streamlined design. when I last measured it, it was like a 54-inch long opening. For me, as a 5'9" male, it's fairly big, right? When I sit inside of this thing, I can almost lay out and get my whole body inside the water. I'm gonna be in the seated position with my legs completely outstretched and still probably would be able to fit another person inside of this thing. It's absolutely massive. And I think for me personally, I like the laid out position more than the huddled up position, because I think it immerses you to the cold a little bit better than the huddled position. You can kind of hide from the cold if you like sit up in a ball, which the outside setup that I have, the Ice Barrel 300, makes you sit into. And even at my height, it's still a pretty tight fit. Like, it's really hard to like want to dunk your head into that seated position. Whereas this, you can just kind of lay back and you'll get into the water very easily. You can kind of sit cross-legged or huddle up in this thing. It's not as easy to do because you will kind of slip and slide around inside of the tub. So the chiller that is available, you do not have to get the chiller, is a 1/4 horsepower chiller. It's a little bit weaker than the one that I have outside, but honestly, I don't think that matters all that much, because the only times that you really need that extra power is when you first set up or you do your water change. And most of the time when you do that, it's at a time where you're probably not going to be plunging anymore. Like, I'll change the water after I'm done with the plunge for the day, and by the next time I'm going into the cold plunge, it's going to be down to temperature. There's a few settings on the cooler or the chiller that make it a little bit more power friendly. You can set it to go every 2 hours. You can get it to go every like 24 hours. And you can set it on a boost mode. I only have it set to every 2 hours after the initial setup, and it keeps the temperature at right where I want it to be. But there's always a little bit of variance. Say you set it to like 49 as I have it right now. Anytime I come in here, depending on the time of the day, it can be at 49, it could be at 50, it could be 51. This is pretty typical from the coolers or chillers that I've used in the past, so not really a big deal. When it comes to setting up the ModTub, it was very easy. It took all of like 15 minutes to just plug in all of the hoses that are all labeled. You cannot mess up the setup at all. The back of the ModTub is pre-drilled, so a few things come on brackets. All you have to do, it comes with a little Allen wrench and you screw everything in, and that setup is very easy. The filter sits right at the back. It kind of looks like a little bit of a rat's nest back there, but they do include a shroud that you can put on top of it and you can hide everything. So it's a nice, clean looking setup. I haven't had any leaks as of yet, which is great. I thought I did, but it's only the condensation that was dripping off of the hoses because of it being hot in the garage and then the hoses being cool. Okay, so now I guess it's the moment of truth. It's time for me to get in the cold plunge and kind of walk you through what it looks like on a typical day of me cold plunging. So I typically like to play music while I cold plunge, but I'm not going to do it while I do this review because of copyright stuff. So approaching the cold plunge, it just went down to 49 degrees. It was like right at 50. You almost never want to get into it. So you want to try to avoid that as much as possible. So what I'll typically do is I will just set my timer on my watch and then I'll drop into the plunge. So I'm going to put my mic right here and hopefully that still records as I do this. And this is what it looks like. Big splash there. That was unintentional. Get in. First thing I want to do here is I want to dunk my head in and really just kind of immerse myself in the cold. And today it feels pretty normal cold. 49 degrees, like I said, is where I typically have it set up.
that's the lowest that I like to be in at nowadays. I've been all the way down to 45 degrees, and I don't really think there's any real benefit from the difference of 45 to 49. They're both cold to me. The first minute is pretty sucky. You really just have to just kind of breathe yourself through it. Try to calm yourself down. Resist the temptation to obviously want to get out of the cold. I guess the first thing that you can really allow yourself to do is to just, you can take your hands out. I don't really think that that's going to change all that much. My hands typically feel the cold the most. I think that's one of the more sensitive parts on your body. But from here, I think I'm probably around 2 minutes now. My timer is not even going right now, so I'm just going to have to guesstimate this. So I'll just kind of sit here and just kind of lean into it. And, you know, at my height, I can really get into this thing. And I have my back is not even touching the side of the chiller or the cooler, but my feet are flat against that side. There's a little jet stream that comes out of here. That's where the water comes out of the chiller. So that part is probably the coldest. But yeah, pretty much I can sit cross-legged. I can kind of huddle up. You could fit a couple people in here if you really wanted to. Like I could just get into this corner right here. That's probably about 3 minutes. And right now, at this point, I've pretty much normalized to the temperature of the water. But 3 minutes is it. And then I am out. Just kind of drain myself of as much water as I possibly can here.
And then one of the things that I really like about having the step is that it keeps my feet clean when I get out. And I'm kind of a huge stickler for that. I never get into the cold plunge dirty. I've only gone in it one time after I did a workout. And that was a longer running workout. And all I did was I put my feet into it. So from here, I'll grab my towel and then I'll just dry off. And having the step and having the lid be able to close like this, it makes it easier to dry off. It's just a little added convenience. And I'm sure you could do it without the step, but it just makes it a little bit more convenient. So why do I cold plunge? Why should you want to cold plunge? I think there are numerous reasons in why people are attracted to doing cold plunges. Especially when it comes down to athletic recovery in between workouts. The athletic and performance benefits that people talk about aren't really the reason why I cold plunge. The reason why I do it is because it helps my mental state out greatly. I'm not typically somebody that is what you would consider a positive person. I typically view the world pretty glass half empty. Cold plunging takes away a lot of the stress that I have on a daily basis. I mean, I am now 40 years old, I've got 2 kids, and I've got a lot of things that are going on in my head throughout the day. A lot of things that are easy to want to not focus on. When I am cold plunging, after I'm done cold plunging, for whatever reason, it just helps me clear up my mental state. And because of that, a lot of other aspects in my life start to get better. Like I start to focus on my nutrition more. I start to focus on my workouts a little bit better, my training plan, my training regimen. And then I can also focus on doing this side of my life, which is doing reviews, being able to put out content. And in this line of work, it's very easy to not want to do it. Obviously, for the most part, you work for yourself. Sometimes you have deadlines, but for the most part, it's whoever can work for themselves the best. And earlier on in this year, I was not the best at it. I was finding every single reason to not want to do it. In the last month or so that I've had the ModTub, I have, I think, been more on point in getting out content on a more timely basis. I'm still working on it, but I think for the most part, I am on kind of like the track back to being a productive person, somewhat positive in society. And I don't want to come off as like some kind of influencer that's trying to sell you some BS because it's popular or because, you know, it's something that's gonna get more likes, follows, and shares and whatnot. No, this is just me telling you how I feel about it. From my own experience is that cold plunging definitely helps out my state of mind. So I know that this is not something that is totally accessible to everybody. It's very expensive. You have the ModTub with the chiller costing $3,000. Not something that anybody can just easily pay for on a whim. The tub itself is also available for $1,400. And I think for the tub itself, that is a stellar deal. When you compare it to some of the other stuff out there, this is just something that is much more ergonomic. You can easily get into it. It's huge. You have really no reasons to not want to get into it. You can get a couple people into it if you wanted to. The tub itself is amazing. If you pay the extra bit for the chiller and all the plumbing, that just is really just to make your life a lot easier and being able to set it up with no fuss or hassle. And I think if you just don't want to think about doing any of the plumbing yourself, which you can do, I think that's the way to go. I would probably pay for the convenience nowadays, now that I'm a little bit older and I don't want to really fuss with all that stuff. And plus, going through the ordeal that I had with my outdoor setup, this is, to me, as a complete package, totally worth it. Things that I don't like about the ModTub, not really a lot. It takes up a lot of floor space. That might be one of them. Another one is that these little screws that hold in the rubber latches, they're a little bit sharp. I kicked one day, cut my foot, still went in the cold plunge, didn't really figure it out until I got out. But these things you kind of have to watch out for. But other than that, I am totally satisfied with the ModTub. I'm going to continue cold plunging just because of how it makes me feel mentally. I'm not here to try to convince anybody that that's like the magical potion. If you have kind of like mental health issues, I would definitely go out and seek some help in the first place. But if that's something that you might struggle with and you have the money to plunk down on a cold plunge, I would highly recommend that you check it out. Maybe go to like one of those hot cold therapy places and try it out, and then from there you can decide if it's something that is for you and something that you want to do. But full disclaimer, they sent this tub out to me to do a review on it. They're not paying me for this review. They have no influence on what I have to say. They don't even want to review this video before I put it up. These are just what I think about cold plunging and the ModTub unit in general. So if you guys have any questions about the ModTub 2.0 or just cold plunges in general, then feel free to leave them in the comment section. And as always, guys, please hit that like button, subscribe, and thanks for watching.